Hi, good morning, everyone. I would like to first of all apologize. This is my first time doing this. I'm a little nervous. My experience in the industry, as you can see, is basically just 7 weeks old. I'm only a placement student doing this for the first time. But I'm passionate about application security. It's something that I thought I'd be a penetration tester when I went to university. It was sexy, it looks awesome. But then I had a little interview, and the result of that interview made me go speak to Tanya, who I now call my Messiah. And she fueled my passion for this. So please bear with me. And if there's anything I've got wrong, please, I'll love your feedback as well. Thank you. We're going to talk about DevOps, DevSecOps, and security being a part of everybody's job. Now, it's my opinion that OWASP is the best thing that's happened to application security, and DevOps and DevSecOps is the next new thing. I'll get to that in a sec. But before I go on, can I ask, is there anyone that writes code here? No? Anyone that secures any app, make patches or stuff like that? In my opinion, it's everyone's job, regardless of if you write code as a developer, if you make security patches, or if you are checking your web apps, making sure there are no vulnerabilities, that you should do that securely and in the most secure way possible. And that's what this talk is leading to. I don't know who's seen this before. This is a little bit of social commentary. It's not meant to be taken literally, but this is how some security people see DevOps. Now, I know it's a little early and no one wants to start seeing unicorn poop, but they feel that everything, the golden things the developers do, that amazing code they make, they have to do the grunt work for it. They have to make sure that it's always cleaned up, it's always nice, and no one can attack it. This is not how we should see DevOps. This is how I want us to see DevOps. We're all singing Kumbaya, holding hands, teaching everybody, encouraging, empowering our developers so that they can make secure code. We have to remove the blame culture. We have to shift from siloing ourselves into one particular category and all work together, both as developers, as the operations, and as security experts. I hope by the time I finish this talk that we all have this Kumbaya moment. My Messiah, she's the inspiration behind this talk. Without her, I don't think I would have any knowledge whatsoever. She's the CEO and founder of We Hack Purple. I'm hoping most of you have heard of Tanya Janka. Her book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, I have a running joke, and she doesn't appreciate it, but I call it my New Testament. And her website is my temple. If application security was a religion, she would be my Jesus Christ. And me, well, like I said, I'm just a second-year cybersecurity student at the University of Salford. 7 weeks ago, I started my placement, industrial placement studies at Battalion. And in that time frame, in just the 7 weeks I've been there, they've encouraged and pushed me to learn more about application security. And even, I never thought I'd be standing here presenting to such an amazing group of people. But with their help and their feedback, I'm here to share one of my passions. So what is AppSec? Now, according to Tanya, she says it's every activity you perform to ensure that your software is secure. Now, we already do this from time to time, but there is no formalized process. Some organizations, don't have a formalized process of application security. Oh. Now, this is usually the bad news part, but poor application security is a problem. Over the last few years, thanks to Verizon, and I have to update this slide because the 2021 slide says APIs are number 1 and web apps are number 2, which is kind of like, well, you've just split our categories into 2 and told us we suck at the top of the 2. So that's not exactly good news. But this is not to scare anyone and not to condescend to our developers, because they do amazing jobs. But this is a problem that we need to address. The industry seems to be more focused on the symptoms, not the disease. We encourage incident responders, penetration testers, and we hype them to the max, even to a certain extent where some of them might have egos, which is a little detrimental to our industry. But we need to deal with the disease itself. We have so many front-facing apps, but we worry about the perimeter, not the window. You have your window wide open, but you've got security guards around. It's not going to stop anyone from breaking in. They could easily jump in through that window, grab your safe, and they're gone. That's what our web apps are. They're the window to our industry, and it's the one way over the last few years that we've had breaches. This has to be resolved. My opinion is introducing DevSecOps. But before I go into that, let me explain why this is actually a problem. In my experience as a university student, we do not teach application security, or we don't teach our students, our future developers, how to write secure code. Now, from my experience, I'm not sure about the rest of you here, but at Salford, we had a security course, and it basically focuses on network penetration testing, right? That's good for me as a cybersecurity student, but not so much for the developers. That's not their realm. Even if from the research I made, some colleges, especially in America, are beginning to introduce some secure coding modules to their courses, which is great. But this is something that it has to be across the board. We have to empower developers to make secure code. We have to actually teach them and motivate them on how to do these things. This is something we're severely lacking in. Another thing is that we are totally outnumbered. Now, according to GitHub, the recent figures shows that there are 500 developers to 20 ops and 2 security members. During the period of waterfall, this could be up to 2,000 developers to 1 security team. Now, if you put the blame of every breach on that security personnel, then it's going to take 18 months, which was what we saw during waterfall, for a release cycle to get released. Thanks to Agile, thanks to DevSecOps, those release times are pretty much immediate, and I'll get into how beneficial that is in a couple of minutes. So what is DevSecOps? According to Imran Mohammed, a guy from Practical DevSecOps, I've taken his course, he explained that DevSecOps is AppSec in a DevOps environment. According to him, we already have these processes. Developers fix bugs, security personnel give advice for remediation and mitigation. But if we pull all of this together, application security, developers, and IT ops, without being siloed, all working together, then we would reduce, there'll be a faster release date and improved resiliency, which I'll go into in a few minutes. I'm a big fan of The Mandalorian, and I think DevSecOps is the way. I was going through the 3 ways of DevOps, and we'll be able to clarify why this should be the standard for every organization creating software. Now, the 3 ways of DevOps, the first way is to emphasize the efficiency of the entire system. The second way is fast feedback. And the third way is continuous learning. In my opinion, I think this meshes well with security. How? By emphasizing the efficiency of the entire system, we can shift from left to right. Now, I have an analogy with a house, right? That if you and your partner, for example, plan to have your dream home, you go through the stages of getting your contractors, getting your architects to design, draw, get the builders in to come in, put fixtures in, and everything. By the time you get to the last day when you want to get your keys, and you realize that you've got 7 kids with only 1 bathroom, you'll have to go back and rebuild the entire process. But when you shift from left to right with the speed, and you have these, you've taken all these considerations in every part of the software development lifecycle, then you'll be able to release your code in time. With a security personnel in every stage of this lifecycle, you emphasize the efficiency of the entire system, meaning that you have a faster release cycle. So what does this mean for security teams? This means that security teams, if they want to be able to work in a DevOps environment, they have to be able to sprint as well with the developers. What does this mean for dev and ops teams? They have to engage in security meetings, be able to threat model. I've lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. There it is. So they help the AppSec teams tune their tools for their sake and for ours. For example, you have a DAS tool or SAS tool in the CI/CD pipeline. Not everybody, in my experience, I had never heard of YAML in any kind of config files until I came to Matillion. Without the help of our developers, I wouldn't have been able to securely test the tool in the CI/CD pipeline. They were efficient in helping us to tune those tools and get the metrics for us to be able to feedback for what they need to correct. Also, the dev and ops teams need to have both positive and negative testing, unit tests on their application. Be able to get it to handle invalid inputs. This is kind of like the threat modeling, almost like the threat modeling stage where you put your evil brainstorming hat on and figure out what are the negative use cases? Which ways can an attacker or a malicious threat actor, what ways would he go to break your system? Faster feedback. Now this is one of my favorites, shifting left. You have to push left because in some organizations, the security team aren't allowed to shift. So you literally have to push to go left. And which goes back to my house analogy. When you go back to the requirement stage, and right from that stage, you have security in mind. Same thing with a house. You get your architects in and you tell them, look, I've got 7 kids. So I have to make sure I've got a bathroom where every one of us can be free and there will be no complaints. You have to ensure that it's safe, get your barriers for your children. You go to the design stage and it's the same thing. What do you need to put on the electric sockets to make sure that they don't go put their fingers in there? Code is almost, you're bringing your design to life. So you're adding your structures and you're ensuring that it's also, your balcony has the security gate so your kids don't jump over. And then you test it. You test it, make sure that it meets those security requirements. You just don't fix the gate and leave it. A little wobble and it falls over and I'm sorry, your kids are down the stairs. And then when you get your keys to get into your new home, you find out that, you don't really need to go back and do anything else because you've considered every possible thing that could go right or wrong while you're going through the entire stage, which means that you get faster feedback during each stage of the software development lifecycle. You get feedback faster on what you shouldn't do and what will be appropriate for the release. What does this mean for the security team? Like I said, the security team will have to learn how to sprint along with development teams. Will be able to add their inputs based on every stage of the secure development lifecycle. What about the dev and op teams? Feedback goes both ways. So you want to be able to tell the security team what you're concerned about, what you feel might break the build, what you feel might be essential to ensure that you could release your software faster. Like I said before, you participate in security activities, incident handling, threat modeling, security sprints as well. If you're in a position where your organization has both red and blue teams, you could actually perform some of those red team activities and see where some of the deficiencies in your system lies. And my personal favorite, continuous learning. I think most nerds nowadays are more either gamers. I'm like the old school nerd. I like a huge chunk of fresh books in front of me. I just love the smell. I don't know why. But for us, like every athlete, I'm sure most of us, I don't know if you guys are Newcastle fans considering where we are, but as a Chelsea fan myself, I know athletes, they constantly have to hone their skills. Even during the off season, you see them on nutrition, they're with their nutritionist, they're doing their fitness regimens. It's the same. They're continuously learning so that they could be in a position where they're always giving their peak performance. And this is the same for us as in security. We have to constantly hone our skills. What does this mean for the security and DevOps teams? This means for the security teams has to be able to enable and empower developers to be able to introduce materials that are necessary for the work they do, to make sure that whatever the code they write, the libraries they use are both secure. The tools that might be required, say, from a security perspective, a DAST, a SaaS tool, using Sneak and stuff like that, to be able to teach those developers and show them how you could use this to find vulnerabilities in that code. Dev and Ops team, what does this mean for them? That means they have to be open-minded. We're not trying to be condescending. We're not saying that software developers suck or they need to get better. We just want them to hone their skills, just like athletes, to be better and be efficient at what they do at all times. Finally, to be able to make security everyone's job, it requires a culture change. First of all, we can't start blaming everybody. A breach happens, we can't say, okay, it's your fault, you deal with it. We know it's happened. The solution should be, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? What can we learn from this breach or this incident or this vulnerability? And how can we make sure that we're in a better place for it? To be able to do that, we have to change our security culture. Even something as minute as passing a pen test, celebrate that. Running a pipeline and it comes with no highs and criticals, celebrate that. Offer a pizza break. You guys did awesome. Those kind of mentality change helps you reinforce the fact that, okay, this is something we need to be doing every day. And it shouldn't be secondary to our jobs. It should be a part of our jobs. We have to reinforce that culture change if we're going to be doing that. Like I said, we're too siloed as teams. Security is on its own, devs are on their own, the IT operations team are on their own and only talk when they need to. We need to be able to work closely with these guys. We need to even, up to a certain extent, embed ourselves in their teams, understand their working patterns, learn from them, and be able to offer solutions when problems come. The only way we can be able to do that is if we all work together, or closely together. Like I said, no more blaming. If a particular situation has happened or occurred, we need to shift from this is your fault to, okay, what do we do to make this better? What can we learn from this moment and ensure that we're more resilient in the future? And then my resources. Like I said, OWASP, I think, is the best thing that's ever happened to application security. I'm an OWASP student member myself, and the benefits I get from just a learning perspective is awesome. I would encourage every one of you to join up. And my Jesus Christ herself. Please follow her. She's amazing. Her insight to everything application security, being that she's been a software developer herself and a security professional now, is insightful. She works with, they used to be called Neurolegend, but they're called Bright now. And I've tested their DAST tool and it's pretty awesome. And it's thanks to her. So please follow her on Medium, follow her on Twitter, check out her topics on YouTube, and please visit the We Hack Purple Academy. It is awesome. And yeah, that's me. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll take your questions. Thank you.
That's your first talk.
That was my
amazing,
first talk.
man.
Thank you.
Honestly. Another round of applause. I mean, first talk.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Kay? Oh.
Not really a question, but a piece of information. I think Tanya's We Hack Purple company got folded into Bright.
Yeah.
And now the whole training academy has become free for anybody to use. So all the paid training courses now have become free for anybody. And her AppSec training courses are very good.
Yeah.
I'd recommend anybody to go and sign up for those courses.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any more questions for Kay?
It's a bit of a mean one. You said at the start something that sort of reverberated with some of my previous experience, sort of that security teams can't shift anywhere. They're not allowed, trying to break down those cultures. I was going to ask, and it's unfair given you've mentioned sort of your short time in the industry, how you think we can kind of break down those barriers. But equally, you also said just give pizza, and that's possibly the best we can ever get. So I've definitely taken that one on board because pizza wins everything. But I'll see if you've got anything else to add to that list as well.
No, I'm glad you considered the fact that this is pretty much me in diapers trying to walk. So I don't think I'm in a position to be able to give that kind of high level advice. From a rudimentary point of view, and as someone who's, like I said, making my baby steps, it would be awesome to have, we've passed the pen test, here's some dominoes. I'd love that. I'd know that every time we have to have any type of security challenge, I have to be on it. Because I have pizza. It's a small start. And I'm sure there are more things that we could do to be able to change the security culture. And that's part of my remit. I'm learning as well. And I want to be in a position where I can be here maybe next year and give this talk again and be able to say, okay, based on the year I've had, these are the things I think we need to be able to do to be able to have a great security culture. Thank you.
Other pizza brands are available. I do think that sometimes if you need to move a culture, you need to find out who's blocking you. Traditionally, it's we can't afford that, that's not that important, and then you have to speak their language. So if someone's blocking you in anything, speak to them in their own language, not in yours, because they don't care about AppSec, they don't care about security. The company makes plastic palm trees. So if we do this, we can make more plastic palm trees. That's the way to start moving change when you have such a wall. It's not easy, but it is don't try and solve it all at once, move it, celebrate your little successes with pizza.
You're right. And I should have mentioned this during my talk, but if security wins, the business wins, right? Or if the business wins, security wins. If the business is out of business, right, we'll be out of a job. Take, for example, the company I work with, Matillion, which is a software development company. If we had any kind of problems that affected the business, we'll be the first to leave. The developers aren't going. They're going to be there to try and fix the problem and make sure that the company earns more money. So if the business wins, security wins. And I think that's a very important part to put in, because sometimes some security folks forget the fact that we have to make these things 100% secure. Not necessarily. But thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me. I appreciate you listening. One question. Oh my God, I'm sweating here.
Don't worry, I'm not really going to ask a question, but because a kind of comment was made of, well, how can you make this happen? I very much just want to say I very much agree with your comment of, sitting on the sprint. That's what I do every morning. And yeah, it's, developers, they don't have the time often to look at security themselves and understand it. And yeah, us in security, we can't always understand everything of the code they're writing. But basically I work with squads as a security analyst, and I alternate between my squads every morning, sitting in on their sprints, look at their Jira tickets, see what they're working on, and pick up from that the things that I might want to look into that might cause issues. But also then when, they get stuff that needs data protection type, data governance overview, hold their hand through that process and help them with it. And so, yeah, you become that kind of critical friend. Yes. They come to you and they ask you the questions. They ask you for help in meeting data governance requirements. But then they start to trust you more as to how do we make this more secure. And yeah, then you get to the pen test and it works. Or you can see the problems that come up in the pen test and you can say, well, that shouldn't actually be too difficult to fix. I think you just need to tweak this, and phew, it's not going to add another month onto our sprints and that. So, yeah, it's very much back what you say.
No, thank you for adding to it. It's part of, I think one of our jobs as application security engineers, at least in my opinion, is it's all good to have that technical knowledge and being able to solve and deal with bugs and vulnerabilities. But importantly, we have to be able to empower the developers. They are the ones in a position that write the code. They will be the ones to be able to remediate it faster. So if we can empower them in a security way about how to consider and how to make security a part of their jobs, then we will probably not have to be critical friends anymore. We'll just be normal buddies. You could just come to me and we talk about this because you understand the security problem and I could help with maybe explaining some of that more. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Any questions? Any really horrible, hard questions for someone on the first talk?
Make me sweat
something super horrible, critical.
You've said about having 7 kids. How have you got the patience?
I don't have 7 kids. I've got 2.
How have you got the patience to deal with them? And has that helped you in your AppSec career? Developers.
That's an actually great question because my first daughter has cerebral palsy. And I should have said this story as well as part of how application security is missing for students at university. My daughter, when she was 6 months old, before she had her brain injury, we always sat together during my university classes because everything was done at home. To make it easier, because she kept on crying, I would just give her Cheetos, right? Like, here's some Wotsits, eat that. After 3 weeks of doing that, her mom kicked my ass. I didn't have coffee for a week. It was painful. But then I started giving her tomatoes instead. She didn't like it at all. Hated it. Cried even worse. But I put my foot down and made her take those tomatoes. And now she's a fruit lover. She's a vegetable lover. She could eat. Man, I was surprised when this chick was eating a corn on the cob by herself. And she's got cerebral palsy. But because she's used to having her vegetables, we know that having Power of 5 a day is good for you in the long run, right? Compared to having Cheetos or Wotsits every day. Same thing could be applied to our developers, right? From their experiences, only when they come into industry sometimes, or if they go externally and learn, they learn how to write secure code. If we keep pushing them in this by giving them these new vegetables, they might not necessarily like it. They're used to having their fancy features and not in security wise having to break it. But if we keep feeding them these vegetables, in my opinion, in time, they would love vegetables as well. So they will always want to write the secure code. They will always consider security first. Maybe not as the be all and end all, but it would be a part of the thinking when they are writing their codes. That's the one way I could equate the two together. And it's the one thing I learned from having children, that you have to be patient. You can't just all be screaming and shouting and saying, you have to do this. You also have to show them why they have to do it. Why is this good for you compared to the stuff that you actually liked before?
So what we're saying is good code pizza, bad code. Excellent. Hey, right. Oh, we have another question. Oh. Is it about vegetables? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's just an observation. It was a really good presentation.
Thank you.
I think, though, you might want to consider going to the developers convention and delivering this presentation to them, because I think you've just reminded all of us what we go through on a day-to-day basis. But if I play devil's advocate to myself, I like a little bit of insecure code. I like the people who click links. I like the people who open attachments. I want to pull them into my bosom and nurture them, because without them, I don't actually have a job. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Look at that. Survived his first talk, his first grilling.
Oh, I've got the sweats to prove it now as well.
Well done, man. You did a really good job.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. Big round of applause for Kate.